What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected action legends faces off against a late-night host who pushes every limit imaginable? In just 17 seconds, Jimmy Kimmel managed to destroy years of goodwill and admiration, driving Sylvester Stallone to his breaking point in what is now called the most shocking celebrity walkout in late-night TV history. The episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live started like any other. The studio audience buzzed with excitement as they waited for one of cinema's greatest icons to appear. Sylvester Stallone, the man who gave life to Rocky Balboa and John Rambo, was supposed to be there to promote his new project. But what unfolded instead was a lesson in how not to treat a guest. The trouble began the moment Stallone walked onto the stage. Normally, Kimmel greets his guests warmly, full of humor and charm. But something felt off this time. There was a sharpness in his tone, a smug attitude that instantly made the room tense. "Ladies and gentlemen, Sylvester Stallone," Kimmel announced, but his voice sounded like he was introducing someone he didn't want there. Stallone, ever the professional, smiled and waved. The audience cheered loudly. They adored him. Sadly, their host did not seem to share that respect. "Sly, thanks for being here," Kimmel said, as Stallone sat down. Before the Rocky star could even speak, Kimmel jumped straight into what can only be described as an ambush. "So, I've got to ask, and I think everyone's curious," Kimmel began, leaning forward with his trademark smirk. "How does it feel knowing your best days are behind you?" The room went silent. Even the band stopped playing. Stallone's smile faded for a second, then he quickly regained his composure. "Well, Jimmy, I'd say my best days aren't behind me at all. I'm working on some amazing projects and feel more motivated than ever," Stallone said calmly, trying to turn the moment positive. But Kimmel wasn't done. He was only getting started. "Really?" Kimmel said mockingly. "Because if you look at your recent films, the box office tells a different story. When was your last real hit? And don't say The Expendables, because honestly that felt like a bunch of old friends making expensive home movies." The audience shifted uneasily. This wasn't funny banter anymore. It was cruel. Stallone stayed composed, though the frustration showed in his eyes. "Jimmy, I think you're looking at the wrong numbers. The Expendables has done incredibly well around the world, and I'm proud of that work," he replied. "Worldwide success, huh?" Kimmel repeated with sarcasm. "Right, because American audiences are done with the whole macho act. You're what, in your 70s now? Don't you think it's time to put down the gloves and the guns?" "I'm 77, Stallone said firmly. "But age is just a number. I believe in staying active, creative, and inspired. There are still stories I want to share." Kimmel laughed, but it wasn't friendly. It was mocking. "Stories you want to share? Come on, Sly. How many times can you play the same guy? Rocky Rambos, it's the same character with a different name. Aren't you tired of being a one-trick act?" The insult hung in the air like smoke. Stallone's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the chair arms. Still, he stayed calm. "My characters connect with people because they represent something real. The underdog who never quits. The soldier who survives against all odds. Those aren't just roles to me, Jimmy. They're part of my life." "Part of who you were, maybe," Kimmel shot back coldly. "But who are you now? A man clinging to old fame?"
"Tell me, when you look in the mirror, do you see Rocky Balboa, or just an old man trying to hold on to the past?"
The question was so cruel that several people in the audience gasped. Stallone looked straight at Kimmel, his eyes burning with that same fire that made his characters legendary. "You know what I see? I see a man who's worked hard all his life. A man who's overcome things that would have crushed others. I see someone who created heroes that inspired millions." "What do you see when you look in the mirror, Jimmy?" It was the perfect comeback. Calm, but powerful. The audience clapped softly, sensing the tension. Kimmel, instead of showing humility, went in even harder. "I see a guy who doesn't have to pretend he's still 25, he said smugly. "I see someone real, not someone milking old movies because he's out of ideas." The room was no longer enjoying the show. It felt heavy, uncomfortable. The crowd had come to celebrate a legend, not watch him be insulted. Stallone took a slow breath. "Jimmy, I came here to talk about my work and to connect with the people who've supported me for decades. I didn't come to be mocked." "Mocked?" Kimmel said, pretending to be shocked. "I'm just asking questions. Isn't that what good interviews are about? Or do you want me to kiss your hand like everyone else?" I just expect the same respect you'd want from others, Stallone said, keeping his tone even. But Kimmel smelled blood. You know what your problem is, Sly? He said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. You never learned when to quit. Rocky should have stayed down in the first movie. Rambo should have stayed in the jungle. And you should have stayed in the 80s where you belong. The words hit hard. Stallone's face went red. His patience was wearing thin. Yet Kimmel pushed further. Let's be honest, Sly. Your speech is slurred, you move stiff, and your face looks like it's been through a dozen fights. At what point do you stop embarrassing yourself and just retire? The silence in the room was painful. Some people looked away. Others couldn't believe what they were hearing. This wasn't comedy anymore. It was cruelty. Stallone's hands trembled, not from age, but from anger. He had been insulted before, but never like this, never so personal. Jimmy, Stallone said quietly, his voice low but powerful. I've been in this business over 50 years. I've seen hosts and comedians come and go, and I've learned one thing about people like you. Kimmel leaned back, smirking, thinking he was still in control. Oh yeah, what's that? People who tear others down do it because they can't build anything themselves, Stallone replied. You sit behind that desk every night, making jokes about people who actually create something, who take risks, who give their lives to their art. What have you ever made, Jimmy? What have you risked? For the first time, Kimmel's smile wavered. He hesitated, then said, I've created one of the most successful talk shows ever. I've entertained millions. I've interviewed presidents, stars, and legends. I think I've done okay. You've made a platform, Stallone said. But what have you contributed? What story have you told that meant something? What character have you created that inspired anyone? Kimmel didn't have an answer, so he did what bullies do. He got nastier. You want to talk about inspiration? Fine. Inspiration is knowing when to move aside and let the next generation shine. Maybe the world's just moved on from muscle-bound old men mumbling through action scenes. That was it. Stallone stood up slowly, his chair scraping across the floor like a gunshot. The sound echoed through the room. He looked down at Kimmel, disgust and pity in his eyes. You know what the difference is between you and me, Jimmy? He asked quietly, his voice steady but filled with fire. Kimmel tried to joke. About 30 years and a few surgeries. But Stallone didn't even blink. He stared straight at him. The difference is that I've spent my life trying to lift people up. Rocky wasn't about boxing. It was about believing in yourself when nobody else does. Rambo wasn't just about war. It was about honoring those who gave everything for their country. Every story I've told was about hope and courage. Kimmel shifted uncomfortably. Stallone pointed at him. And you? You've built your career by putting people down, making others feel small so you can seem big. You don't lift anyone up, you tear them apart. That's not comedy, Jimmy, that's cruelty. The room was completely silent. Everyone, the crew, the audience, even Kimmel, was frozen. Now hold on, Kimmel began, but Stallone cut him off. No, you hold on, he said. You invited me here, now you'll listen. I've been knocked down more times than I can count. I've been told I can't act, can't write, can't direct. I've been rejected, laughed at, doubted, but I kept getting back up. Not because I'm tough, but because I have something to say, something worth fighting for. He started walking off the stage. Kimmel panicked. Sly, come on, sit back down. We're just talking here, he said, his tone suddenly softer. Stallone stopped, turned around. No, Jimmy, this wasn't a conversation. This was an ambush. You wanted to look clever by making me look foolish. I'm not playing that game, Kimmel tried again. Look, maybe I came on strong. That's my style. It's just comedy. Stallone's stare could have cut glass. Everything's personal when you mock someone's life's work. When you make fun of what defines them. You crossed a line tonight, Jimmy. I'm done pretending that's okay. With that, Sylvester Stallone walked off the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, leaving behind a host who had just learned that not everyone will let themselves be humiliated for ratings. The audience sat frozen, the energy completely gone. Kimmel tried to joke, tried to move on, but the damage was done. In less than 20 seconds of heartless cruelty, he had shown the world exactly who he was. And it wasn't pretty.